I'm here to talk Tribute Haul, the basics of it, some details for these triumphs, and what to keep in mind on your way to maxing it out. Timestamps are below. Starting out is simple. Open up the chest next to Werner on the Nessus barge. You'll need some glimmer for this and for when you get there. Can always visit the spider if you're dumb like me and spent it on the rest of the barge for no reason. With the new invitation in hand, navigate to the Tribute Hall next to all the other Leviathan activities. You'll need to do any one of these 4 bounties. They're all pretty straightforward, and so far they've remained pretty similar day to day. The location for the 2 public events is different, but things like 50 kills, 20 ability kills, 50 precision strike kills, and 20 motes in Gambit Prime, dying in the middle of any of them will reset your progress. Even if you fall to your death in the tower between strikes, that's a reset. Make sure you have space in your consumables for the boons of opulence when claiming the bounty. If not, I hear they'll go to your postmaster, but some people get tripped up by that. Boon in hand, back to the Tribute Hall you go, use it and claim the next step, place the first raid banner like tribute to enter the hall, and you're in. Now the quest will be telling you to place more tributes all the way up to 18, at which point you'll do a straightforward adventure for bad juju, but this isn't meant to be a guide for obtaining that. So let's talk about how you're getting all these tributes. Some come from triumphs found under minor destinations. The theme here is completing activities with gear from the menagerie or any Leviathan raid. So hopefully you got that and held on to it. Otherwise you may be in for many menagerie runs now that the chest cannot be cheesed. You get 1 item per run. A couple triumphs here I do want to discuss, because I can actually say some things that are not just reading the triumph to you and may make your life easier. Starting with Earn Infamy in Gambit. From my testing, it looked like with a full set of all eligible weapons and armor, but none being exotic, I could get roughly 7.5% for a Gambit win, and half that for a loss. If you have fewer than 8 eligible items equipped, you will still make progress, just not as much. With 7 equipped, I earned 6-ish%. It could have been 6 and a small fraction, and with fewer items, it steadily goes down from there. If you only have a few calus-themed items, like a weapon and not much armor, it'll take very long. Your time is better spent going back to the menagerie to get a full set, especially since you'll need it for other triumphs in the category anyway. Back to Gambit, even though it says Earn Infamy, that 7.5-ish% never changed. Even when I was on over a 5-game winning streak and earning more infamy, it didn't go any faster. Also, turning in bounties that give infamy, like Gambit dailies, that did nothing to affect it. To be expected though, it seemed like wins and losses were the only thing that mattered. Gambit and Gambit Prime were counting equally, so I mainly played Prime with it being only 1 round. And another tip, if you didn't think to try it, you don't have to use the opulent gear for the entire match. If you swap to it right before the end, that is perfectly fine and will give you full credit. It seems like the match is officially over around when the drops pop up on screen, so you can use whatever weapon and armor setup you want to be using in Gambit, as long as you remember to swap to the opulent gear before the end of the match. With that said, there are 2 other Gambit triumphs here to be defeating enemies and defeating enemy guardians while using the gear, but these progressed much faster than the infamy, such that I didn't even measure them. Just know that some of your matches should be played with the gear actually on until those are done, or maybe just wear the armor for the whole match and only swap out the weapons at the end, something like that. Next, there is a similar triumph for earning Valor in Crucible, except this time with the full gear, I was getting 4% for a win and 2% for a loss, which sounds pretty terrible, but Crucible matches do go by faster, and just like Gambit, the progress was the same regardless of the mode. Competitive wasn't any faster or anything like that, so Rumble and Mayhem are here. They both make sense as fairly quick modes. It's really whichever you think you're more likely to win. If you're a god and you're gonna stomp your way through Rumble, go ahead. Or there's Mayhem if you're rolling with a team or you just prefer super spam. Keep in mind, the same thing applies where you can swap all of your gear to the opulent stuff right before the end of the match and receive full credit, but if you're playing Mayhem with all the supers, then maybe it doesn't matter what you have equipped all that much. Once again, there is a separate triumph for defeating Guardians in the Crucible, so keep that in mind, but once again, that went much faster than earning Valor. I think those are the most interesting triumphs to discuss. This secret triumph is not very secret. It's revealed after you place 18 triumphs for the Bad Juju mission, and the triumph is for completing that mission, the other side, solo without dying, which I hear is not too complicated. There's one for over 40,000 triumph score, which I'm too much of a noob for, 3 triumphs for doing the year 2 raid encounters in the gear, and then what seems like a redundant triumph for encounters in any Leviathan raid, but it completes at the same rate as the crown one, so I guess it's relevant if you don't have access to crown, you can do some year 1 raids for this, otherwise doing crown will get this one done at the same time. I have to assume if you swapped into opulent gear before the end of an encounter, that would count, assuming the encounter is chill enough to do that. I doubt they'd track whether or not you're using the gear in the middle of the encounter if they don't in Crucible and Gambit, but I can't confirm that. Back on the first page, you have offer a tribute, that's a freebie, then defeat enemies in strikes, simple and fairly quick. This time there's no swap trick at the end of the strike because it isn't about completing it, it's about defeating enemies. Then finally some nightfalls, one at 100k. For that you do need all 8 items equipped to be eligible, no partial progress here, and 3 nightfalls at 50k. I won't give a full nightfall guide, there are tons of those that go into great detail, but this should be fairly easy with a friend or two. Again, no gear swapping trick though, since nightfalls lock your gear. Then there's another secret triumph here, which at the time of recording this is still a secret. It isn't for the Juju Catalyst at 45 tributes, people have that. You can check the description for any update on what this is. Then these 2 at the top are essentially tracking your completion and don't award additional tributes. That's it for Triumph tributes. The other ones come from purchases, costing various materials, fairly pricey. You can buy them all up front with some help from the spider perhaps, or if you're in no rush, it would be better to complete these bounties every day for boons. They each increase the discount by 1% up to a max of 80%. There's a lot of confusion surrounding these bounties though. You can claim them on all of your characters, but 4 is the intended account-wide boon cap per day. They've clearly said that. The bounties are meant to only award Glimmer if done after you have your daily 4 boons, so it should take you 20 days to reach max discount, which makes sense. I don't think they wanted people to blow through this content in a week with 12% per day. However, many people have broken the cap, lots of people with 5 to 8%, but some things people say they did doesn't work for other people. It was difficult to nail down any kind of pattern. To try to test a few things and see where I was cut off, I completed 3 on one character, but didn't claim them. Swapped and got 4 more. They all said they awarded a boon at the bottom. I did all 4 of those, but didn't claim it again. Then went back to the other character, claimed the 3 I did while watching to make sure I wasn't hitting a max stack. Then swapped back to claim the other 4, but as soon as I claimed my 4th boon, it cut me off as intended. Maybe I should have tried turning in those 3 boons for a 3% discount, then continuing to claim them, or I could have claimed the bounties that I did on the other account as opposed to the 4th Gambit bounty that I didn't do. Or some people say buy all the bounties on all characters before completing any of them, and that will work, but then other people straight up claimed and turned in all 4 on day 1, and then were able to get more on another character later in the same day. And even without having claimed Bad Juju, I know there was another theory about that, Bad Juju resetting it. Bottom line, it all seems very strange and partially exploitable for the time being. You can experiment with it, but I assume not for long, and either way, you're only saving a few days. Buggy behavior aside, it's a pretty simple system, and it's completely up to you when you decide to buy things, depending on your material budget. Maybe you want to rush to 18 for Bad Juju, and then wait for the 80% discount to get to 45 for the Catalyst, and eventually 50 for the emote and the completion. That's all for a rundown of the Tribute Haul. I'm gonna go to the mall, make a call, and step into a war with the Cabal on Mars. So let's get to taking out their command one by one. Volus to Arak. From what I can gather, he commands the siege dancers from an Imperial land tank outside of Rubicon. He's well protected, but with the right team, we can